everybody, good morning. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne. Sorry for the running late this morning. My body's conspired against me, and I couldn't move real fast this morning, so tweaked my back. We probably won't be very long today. We'll see how I feel. I'm going to be tracking it, so we're going to do that. But yeah, new thing. Yeah, every once in a while, though, Anne's medical crap gets in the way, so you guys have to wait. So it happens very infrequently, considering how much is wrong with me. So we can thank the gods for that, right? But yeah, so there we are. There we are. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I tweaked my back last night and ended up on muscle relaxers last night. Fun! And moving a little slow today. So, and then there's some other stuff, but you know. So, okay, so we've got Von Soleil here. I wasn't sure how I wanted to primer, but I decided to go with a Zenith. It's not too speckly either. So I hate to endorse a competitor, but, and obviously you could also use our primer through an airbrush, or, I've heard Stynylrez is very good for Zenith as well. But this is Games Workshop white over black, and it's, I'm pretty happy with it. Like, it's maybe not quite as nice as you can get with the airbrush, but it's not very speckly, so I'm pretty happy. So let's see here. Let's get her in focus. Whenever there's a print item under the camera, it is like, I'm a document cam. I must focus on that. So there we are. Yeah, bad backing. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that's wrong with me just isn't going to ever go away, Kerniko, so, you know. It's all good. It's all good. It's like, you feel better, you don't feel better, you just deal. You deal with what the day is. I mean, so seldom does it disrupt the stream now that I'm doing my exercises, the back and but there's still everything else. So yeah, those of you with chronic illness in the chat totally understand. So I just step out of my balcony, Pendrake. If you really want the tricksy way to do it when you're indoors and you don't have a good outdoors. Sorry, David is standing there looking quizzical. I'm not sure what he needs. If you don't have a good outdoors area, the thing that Jennifer used to do, Jennifer Haley, is she would go into her bathroom and she would open the window and she would spray out through the window. She would hold up the mini in front of the window and spray out in really, really cold weather when she had nowhere to prime, or really humid. So she would do it that. And when you do that, I used to do the same trick in Wisconsin when it was really cold. But I'd open the back door to our game store and I would stand just inside the door, and I would spray out. Which essentially makes this buffer of warm air rushing out past you to push everything out, and it also means you're not dealing with the really cold air. So yeah, so I mean, you still get some fumes, but a lot of it will just go out. So yeah, those are the tricksy ways to get around it. I won't confirm or deny that some people may have done this, in hotels out onto the balcony if they had one. But yeah, so that's a trick if you live in inclement conditions where it's very moist or very cold. Heat doesn't really matter. But what does matter actually is that I've heard is that your miniature and your primer are at the same temp. Don't leave your miniature outside in hot weather and then try to spray it with a room temp primer. It'll go wonky or colder. You want them about the same temperature. So I always keep them at the same temperature, walk outside, do it, and walk back, and I have very few problems. Yeah, when it's windy, it can be a real challenge. I know I used to have to walk around Reaper's parking lot to go up against the building at various angles to see where the best priming angle was, where the wind was blocked and wasn't too terrible. So I feel you, Sagebrush. Valendar, yeah, it definitely, I like to, the thing about this is that when I put a black model under the camera, you guys really can't see anything. So for me, in this case, it makes more sense to Zenith so that you guys can see her details. So that's why I did it more than that. Like you, I tend to cover over everything. Although I will say that just like I've been going over on the Patreon, starting with this and tuning it, if you're one of those people who is not quite sure where to put your shadows and highlights, this can help. Because then you just paint by numbers. You paint exactly what you see. If it's bright white, then you put a highlight color there. If it's kind of in the middle, you put your midtone color there. If it's black, then you put your shadow color there, and you use mixes of them in between where you have room. So it can be a good way to start understanding where to highlight. And I've run into that a lot with beginning to intermediate level students where they're not quite sure where to put the highlights when they're trying to start kind of realistic lighting, right? Overhead lighting. They know how to highlight everything that bulges out, which is what I call kind of the gaming highlight or the GW highlight, the old GW highlight. It still is actually a GW highlight. But maybe they're not sure how to go about thinking about light falling from above. And so this is it's not perfect, but it's a good way to start. Oh, yay. Yeah, Inara, that's the smart thing. The smart people do that. They prep and prime a whole bunch at once. I don't, because I was trying to explain this to David the other day. He's one of those people who loves to build. Like, he'll just build a bunch of models, right? Out of it, like, he got some GW stuff for Warcry, and he was really happy about it. And so he built a bunch of models. I could never do that. Like, I have to wait until I'm really wanting to work on it and build it then and start working on it right away. If I don't do that, like, my enthusiasm dies for it. Like, if I have it pre-prepped, like, that's a sure sign I'm never going to work on it. It's terrible. I don't know why I've got that mental block. I probably should just work on it. You know, I'm Miss working through mental blocks person. I always say there is nothing I cannot unblock, but I don't care enough about it to unblock it. I've learned to work with my idiosyncrasies. I guess you just choose to keep some idiosyncrasies, right? Even though you know that you're dysfunctional. You're like, I'm going to keep that idiosyncrasy. It serves me well. Yeah, neutral ambient lighting highlights. I mean, whatever you want to call it. There's still shadows in a neutral, like in an overcast day, of course. But yeah, I mean, I call it the gaming style. Because that's what you typically, if you start with the base coat wash, highlight, kind of style, that's what you end up doing. You end up, shading wherever there's a fold or wherever the paint settles, even when it doesn't make sense, right? And the example I like to give is like down here. So the primer, you can see like this is a fold, and if you were doing a wash, the wash would absolutely pool in this fold. And although it is darker up here, you can see that the primer actually fell on this lower area. So here, a wash does not serve you well if you're trying to get a realistic effect. And if you're working with something like OSL, where you're doing a glow, then that really isn't serving you well, because if you don't start thinking about how light actually acts, it's very hard to do OSL. Other source lighting, object source lighting, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Yes. Exactly, Fubeka. Yeah, that's kind of the way I am. I like to focus on one thing at a time. I feel like I get overwhelmed if I've got too much going. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, Fubeka. Yeah, I really liked doing this one for that reason. Like, I really think that she's a really dynamic figure. I think that actually the overhead lighting, zenith priming thing on a lot of Games Workshop models looks really good, especially after you tune it and accent it a bit, just because they tend to have a lot of small detail and they're pretty dynamic. So I think they look pretty too when they're just black and white. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of work, but it looks pretty. Maybe I should just do that, right? Maybe I should do what you're saying, just prep them and prime them zenith and tune them, and then maybe they'll look good enough that I'll actually feel like painting them. I don't know. But anyway, let's figure out. So Vonsale is going to get an interesting orcish skin tone, because I wanted to do it. But I'm not going to use orc skin, because I always feel like orc skin is too darn gray. I may do a mix of troll hide and orc skin. Because the thing to remember here is that I'm going to paint her in red. And because I'm going to paint her in red, and I want those reds to be pretty saturated, I don't want to go with a grayed out color like this. It will clash. Absolutely, it will clash. When you use something that's too gray next to a really vibrant color, it does not like it. So I can work with that by either warming it up with troll hide, or I can work with troll hide and a human skin tone to get something in between. So I'm trying to figure out if I want tan skin or rosy here. Maybe we'll try Rosy. So I'm going to mix these two colors, because why not? They're complements. Morning, Daffodil. Yeah, I just find it's my overwhelm thing, and after like years of having like a crap ton on my plate, it's very easy for me to feel too overwhelmed if I have too many models around. That's why if I do that, if I do prep, and then for some reason I get distracted and I don't work on the model, I have to put it away. I can't have it sitting out staring at me. Then I go through the box of doom at some point. But okay, so let's see what we can do with this. So I've been wanting to do this for a while with a half orc, is use a very olivey tone with some brown in it, even for some shadows, and then kind of bring it up more toward a normal skin tone in places. Yeah, box of doom, exactly, D. Clearman. Now, if I did want to make something like her potion bottle glow, and I'm thinking about putting a crystal on the end of her staff. So I may get to that. And if I do that, I'm going to have to alter my lighting a little bit. So I do have to kind of make that decision fairly soon if I decide to do it glowing. The lighting isn't bad for that, but definitely this whole side of her face almost would get a little more light. So although the little horns do get in the way. So yeah, I'll think about it. I might just do a crystal that's not glowing and just do a crystal just to do a crystal. Which is totally doable with green stuff if you make a little tube and you can cut facets into green once it's cured. Yeah, Rebecca. I have boxes of fresh, i.e. never touched miniatures in my closet, and then I have boxes of, I started this or prepped it and lost love, and I just can't look at it all the time. And then, yeah, sometimes I go in there and say, yeah, I'm kind of in the mood to work on this again. Or I say, OMG, I totally screwed this up and now I don't want to. So I'm going to try like a couple drops of olive and just like 1 drop of Rosy, and I'm going to see what color that makes. See if I like it. Because I want to lighten up the olive. I don't want to start with something so dark with a skin tone unless I'm going to go very dark with her. And even then, I think I want the shadows to be brown. But yeah, if you're somebody like me who gets overwhelmed when you have too many figures going at once, then I do recommend just getting a little box in your closet, or a big box if you're like me and you work on big models, and try putting them aside for a while. I mean, do be aware if you're like constantly cheating on your current model, because then you're just never going to get anything done. I need to straighten this up. There we go. My camera was out of position, but we are going to move this over here so you can see it. Okay, so about 2-to-1. What's going to happen is the pink, the red in this Rosy skin is going to mute just a little bit the green. It's going to obviously lighten it because it's built in a white base, so it's got a lot of white in it. And then it's going to warm it up a little bit because there's also yellow in this. So, because it's an orangey skin tone, right? With a little bit of more pinkish tone. So that's what you've got. And that's actually really nice. I like this color. It's warmer than the orc by a lot. See that? See how gray the orc is? I need it to be more saturated and warmer and less gray so that it'll work with my red when I go to do her red dress. I haven't done red for a while. I'm looking forward to it. Red is one of my favorite colors to paint. My least favorite color to paint is blue. Just before anyone asks. So yeah, let's get some of this on here and see how it looks. So I'm not going to preserve my zenith here. I am going to go over it. I kind of know where all my shadows should go. So I don't need to preserve it very much. I do with orcs and half orcs. I like to put a little bit of greenish in there, but I don't like it to be cartoon green, if that makes sense. I can't see where her ear is. I think that's her ear. I always forget ears, so I'm trying to make an effort. But I don't like it to be too Christmas green, too unnatural green. I feel like olive colors are better for orcs and half orcs just because because of the brown in there and the more muted, it still looks alien, but it doesn't look like way off like a bright green would. Hey, Drelcree, thank you. 15 months, dang. I don't like blue because blue is a very transparent color and very dark, which means that the minute you add white to it, it becomes extremely hard to highlight. So I've had to create ways to work around that, and it annoys me. I still find it at times extremely difficult to get smooth blends on blue, and it's just an annoying color to work with. It's been very frustrating for me at times over the years, so I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy painting it. Whereas red and green, I find, are like super fun to highlight because you're going up with yellow. I prefer orangey reds, just in case that wasn't clear. So I think that going up with yellow gives you a really like beautiful color. I used to love to paint salamanders, space marines, because of that beautiful green. And it was so nice and relaxing to highlight that green. It was really easy. And I felt like it looked like gemstones. It looked like emeralds when I was done. And so I loved it. All right. Yeah, I like this green. I think this is a really good green. But yeah, I find blue the most difficult and thus the least fun for me to highlight. Now, if we were going to go and utilize this zenith, I would actually be leaving the black, and I would come in with a brown, and then I would blend the two. But I think I can remember where my shadows are. So I'm not going to be too crazy about that. And I kind of would like this green to be all down anyway, so that I can glaze with browns, use a very thin layering brown instead of a solid brown. When you're doing the paint by numbers over zenithal kind of thing, you usually do want to put a fairly solid coat of color down and then blend them. Jazzy, we actually do a kind of a rotation. So every day during the week is a different model, but I've got 6 specific models that are posted, that should be posted on Reaper's social media. It should be posted on their, I think on Facebook. Is it on Discord too, guys? But if you really want to do this as a paint along, Jazzy, what I recommend is going and looking at our Reaper YouTube, Reaper Miniatures YouTube, because all of my episodes are on there. So you could do a search by item number, which I'm always showing whenever we do one of these. And Justin puts it in the title, so it's easily searchable. So like if you wanted to follow along on, let me grab somebody who's almost done. If you wanted to follow along on Sphinx, who is almost done now, Sphinxy, you could go to the YouTube and search for 77576. And that would let you essentially just stream every episode of Sphinx so that you can paint along. Yeah, she's an orc. She's a half orc, so I'm going to go green with her. Well, green and other colors. I don't think it should ever be, like, simple. So yeah, Jazzy, that's the way we do it kind of on this stream, because we like... It's not a paint-along, it's not a formal paint-along, but you can use it that way if you go back and look at the old models. Otherwise, though, I like to have different things every day so that people don't get bored. Yeah, so I don't get bored. It can get really boring, and the thing is also that mostly this stream is not about paint-along, but it's about just the painting tips that we share through the whole thing, and that's somewhat guided by the chat as well as what I'm doing. So while I do this, if we start talking about, like I was talking about a minute ago, why blue is hard to paint, why I don't like to paint it, or why blue can be hard to paint if you start with really dark, deep ones, which is what I like to do. But anyway, so we digress regularly. So it's not just Anne shows you how to paint the orc model, which I think a lot of people tend to do, but I would, I like the way that we can bounce around to a whole bunch of different topics if we're painting different models, so that in 1 week it never gets bored. I used to do a show on Wednesday where we just painted like this dragon diorama, the Dance of Death. It took forever, and it was so monotonous for me and for the viewers because, at some point you're just painting scales for like 5 episodes for 5 weeks. And you're not really doing different techniques or anything, so it can get it can get, in my mind, very boring. Very valuable if you're trying to paint dragons, I suppose, but what I learned from that is that I just wanted to switch it up every stream. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, but I think Josh's Miniatures Monday show is more of a paint along. Am I right on that, guys? I haven't seen it for so long. But he gives you simple tips to paint fast, and I think if you wanted to paint along with him, you could. Yellow and orange hard to paint? Yeah. Oh, has it? I didn't know that, Quindy. Sorry, I'm behind the times. Shows come and goes. All right, so let's get some brown liner out. Brown liner. Where's I've got blue liner. I've got, yeah, I was going to say, I just stole my bottle back from David, and I have a brand new bottle, and he has a brand new bottle. So David has no reason to steal my brown liner. And I'm trying to figure out what I want. I might want a little bit of, maybe some russet. Muddy brown would work here, but you'd have to darken it. Russet works. Blackened brown would work, but it's maybe a little bit too dark. I want an undertone that's brown. Anytime we can use or make a demi-human skin tone look a little bit closer to what we would consider a normal human skin tone, with browns or tans or beiges or whatever, and with highlighting with reddish colors in the right place, the more realistic that will read to us and the less alien. So I'm going to use a little bit of russet, tap in a little bit of my brown liner here to just darken it just a little bit. Then I'm going to thin it down, and I'm going to see what I can do with it and see if I like the color. Boop. And that might, remember that washes, because essentially when you're thinning down paint, whether you're layering with it or whatever, it goes to more of a wash consistency. You know, washes do dry a little lighter than they look. So I have to keep that in mind. I may think this is dark enough, but it may not be. So I'm going to darken in her eye sockets a little bit. I'm going to bring some red tones into the cheeks and the nose, Mighty Jabberwock, and perhaps the ears, which are the places you would normally see them. That's why I started mixing in Rosy skin to my Troll Flash. The beginning tone was created by mixing a normal skin tone, a regular skin tone, into a green. On a very small model like this, on 28mm, you don't have much opportunity. You could get those subtleties. It's a lot more effective, I think, on busts. I've seen several good, like Goblin and Orc busts, where pinkish coloration was used in the nose and cheeks and ears to suggest more of a humanoid origin, if that's what you're going for. I'm going to shade underneath her jawline. You want to put these shadows everywhere it makes sense, so under the little tiny nose also, if you can, if you've got the brush control, putting a shadow under the nose. If the eyes are messed up and you really want to redo them, normally what I do is just paint in the eye itself. But if you've gotten paint up onto the eyelids and up into the sockets here, then yeah, you may have to repaint the whole thing, Sagebrush. It depends on how messed up they are. Like, if I've just messed up a pupil, I usually just re-block in the eye themselves with dark, which I haven't actually done here yet. This is just putting in the shadows underneath her brows. And I'm going to bring a little bit of my green back in to pick up those eyelids. But yeah, I've started over on plenty of eyes, but usually I just need to refill in the socket with a brown liner or a walnut. Actually, I'll do that now. Let me get my brown liner ready here. So the difference between the brown I'm using to put in the eye sockets and the liner that I'm going to use for the actual eye is pretty big. This is brown liner. I tend to use brown liner for small details like this because it's a little more fluid. It's a little easier to get it to go into those little parts when it slides off the brush. This figure, unlike many Bobby figures, has tiny eyes. Very tiny. This is going to be a challenge to get these eyes to look right. And the other eye is kind of blocked by her staff, so I have to come in here very carefully to make them darker. But yeah, so depending on how you do eyes, sagebrush, you can see how the actual eye is darker than that brow shadow, right? So I would just refill in the eye itself with that dark color and then go back. I'm going to get a shadow on the side of the nose here. I'm probably going to need a mixture of this green and this brown. I think I'm going to want a kind of a 50-50 to kind of make a first shadow, which isn't as harsh. Because sometimes when you try to shade a color with a totally different color, it goes weird. It just looks too stark. So what I've done here is created a 50-50 between my green, which is troll flesh and rosy skin, and my brown, which is russet brown and a little bit of brown liner. I've mixed those together to get this brownish olive. And I can go over the sides of the nose a little bit with that, because it was a little bit too stark. A little bit too stark of a shadow. And you also want a shadow underneath the lower lip if you can do it. Again, these particular targeted shadows are sometimes hard to get on, the little tiny ones are hard to get on a model of this scale. It is a little bit easier and more effective when you're working on bigger models like 54s, 75s, and busts. Or giants, which may as well be 75mm models. Yeah, meadow green is much more artificial of a green. I'm sure Bobby would want her painted meadow green, because Bobby seems to want everything painted meadow green. But I wanted to do green on this one. We haven't ever done... I don't think we've ever done orcish skin tones on stream. This would be new. Oh, she's half orc, of course, so... Yeah, she's a half orc, so I don't think I'd go that far with her Zen, but it's up to you, yeah. Everybody wants to do orcs different ways. I made the orcs in my D&D world not evil, so they're a different culture, but they're not evil. All right, gonna get the line of her mouth in there. And she's got those the tusks, which I have to, like, figure out. I can see the one on the one side very easily. The other one is a little more subtle. But I am gonna have to line around them. This is gonna be fun. I.e. not fun. Because they're tiny little tusks. It's really hard to see the one on this side. I'm going to grab some of my brown liner, and I think I've partially painted it over. So I'm going to, when you've got tiny little tusks like this, just try to paint them dark first. Take a little bit of your liner, figure out where they are, and paint them in dark. Because then you can come back and hit them with a light color. And that'll make them really pop out and be easy to see. This is a technique that I use with all tiny details. Need a little bit more brown liner. Need a little bit more fluid in my brown liner. If it's not coming off my very thin brush, that's because it's too thick. The top of this tusk is hard to hit. And it feels like the tusk on the right is a little bit more, isn't a little bit bigger than the one on the left. It didn't necessarily look that way when I was going to prime it though, so I've got to question whether I'm just not hitting this one as much. And we also got to make sure we don't go down below the lower lip, as these are meant to be coming out of the lower lip. So we got to make sure that the line of the mouth is the lowest point for those tusks. Still need that one a little bit more, I think. Half orc, Silvertongue. Half orc. She is Vonsley, half orc wizard. She would like you to know she's just half. And that she is much smarter than your average orc. Alright, that's a little better. Got those tusks kind of in. Tusks must be hard to... Well, they're hard to sculpt with green stuff. But yeah, this one took over from our friend the Dark Dwarf Smiter. I decided that I would keep doing humanoids who could be antagonists or protagonists, depending on... I'm just trying to trim up those tusks a little bit with my green, depending on how you're playing them. And we have not done highlights on this skin yet either. Alright, that's a pretty good base, I think. I probably want a line around her hands. I do want to make sure I keep an eye on the time because my back's bad today, so we're gonna not do a full show. Although we did start a little bit late, but we'll see. Right now I'm doing okay, but I'll definitely take a stretch break soon, probably at the 10:30 mark, and see how I feel. Let's see, fingers still go. Always line your fingers, folks. Always line them. Lining them is the only way you're going to get them to stand out. Otherwise, your hand looks like a blob. Do not make blobby hands. Line your fingers. If you're like, I don't have the brush control yet, my answer is, if you never practice it, you never will. So get out there and line some fingers. No whining. No excuses. Practice makes better. Ah! She wants to fall off her tack because I didn't squish her on very firmly. Alright, so the liner lets us crisp up that hand. And now I'll also put a line between the sleeve and the hand. No whining, just lining. Exactly. Suru's got it. Yes, I'm in a no compromises mood today. Actually, I'm probably just a little grumpy. Everybody's grumpy when they're hurt. But I'm okay. And I usually line around the side when you can see the fingers curl. Put in that little, sorry, off camera, curl. That little curl where the fingers curl up on the bottom of the hand. Don't really need lining here because I've got the bottom of this jar and it's quite dark. So for now, it can stay that way. Also the advantage of the black primer, it does save you a little bit of lining here and there, depending on if you preserve it. There we go. That's good. She's a rebel, Shadow Raven. I mean, you have to be a rebel to be half orc wizard. I mean, come on. That character class, not many of them out there. I can only imagine the amount of discrimination she faced when she went to the wizard's tower to get trained. There we go. So I put in this deep shadow with the collar. You can see that I blacked it in inside of the collar on this side. Because if I do have a light source coming from here, that's going to be in shadow. Otherwise, her chin and her face are kind of casting a bit of shadow there. So I want some contrast there, so I went really dark with it. Alrighty. Let's do a set of... Start on a set of highlights because, like I said, shorter stream today probably, just to preserve my back. I am going to grab some of this brown, though, and put it over her tusks really lightly. Makes more of a realistic shadow. These might be so small that it won't matter, but we'll see. So now let's mix us up a skin highlight, and then we'll start putting we'll try to put some reddish tones into her skin and see how it works. But first we need a highlight, and to build that highlight, we're once again going to add our Rosy skin into our olivey green color. But this time, we're going to do it a little bit in reverse. Remember, we used 2 drops of olivey troll hide and 1 drop of this. Now I'm going to go with actually 3 drops of this and 1 drop of the troll hide and see what kind of color I get. Oh, I'm sure that it was worse than that. I went splat. Oh, almost wrong color there. We do not want orc skin. We do not want the gray color. No gray color allowed. If I want a gray color, I'll mix it. Which is probably what I'm about to get. There we go. I would imagine that wizards could be even worse on their discrimination. I don't know. Like, already you've got the orc stigma and the woman stigma. Yes, we do see a fair number of female wizards, so maybe that's more acceptable. So notice how this went really brown. But it's still olivey. But it's warming up because of the reds that are in that rosy skin. So now I'm going to actually mix something a little different. I'm going to do this again to make a highlight skin tone, and then I'm going to add some red, some proper red to it, shall we say. Like, if I ever wrote a book about a female half-orc wizard, the wizards would probably be real crappy to that person. Let's see, I tend to like to use deep red for blush colors and lip colors and all that sort of thing. Who knows how it's going to interact with the troll hide? We're about to find out. Boop. 1 drop. Just 1. So we're essentially mixing this, but then we're also adding a drop of actual red. And we'll see how it works. A lot of people will just go straight over to like a very, very hard transition to a reddish cheek color and nose color and all that sort of thing. And you certainly could. Ooh, that's a pretty interesting color. But since I always do this whole, you know, mix a little bit of dark red with your skin tone to get your blush color, I just wondered what I would get if I followed that rule with an orc. And what I get is this kind of interesting taupey pinkish color, which is actually pretty nice. And I might throw some of that in another well and actually add a little bit more deep red. Hey HM, thanks for that sub. 18 months. You really remember to resub your Prime. I am terrible about it. Putting just a little bit more. To see what I can do here. Takes it a little bit more pinky red. So what you're getting with this grayed out color is you're getting complementary colors mixing, right? So we're mixing a deep red with an olive green. And it's definitely causing it to mute to a brownish or grayish color. More brown than gray because of the amount of yellow in the olive. All right, so now we've got, actually this is a pretty nice selection of colors. So that's where we are right now. Hold on, we got too much white in this frame. There, now we can see it a little bit better. So I've got our russet brown, and we've got a very interesting selection of colors here. I don't know, I haven't looked at Gnome Skin yet. Is Gnome Skin in the RVE set? Some of the colors are Estro or Sadie's colors, and I haven't gotten all of them. I've gone over all the colors in... Let's see I've gone over all the colors in the from the ReaperCon set last year, but I haven't dipped into the RVE colors yet. All right, so I'm going to use that blushy color to see if I can throw some pink in these cheeks, and I want to start to get some highlights up here too. HD Dwarven, yeah. Yeah, if it's very reddish. And a darker color, not a lighter color. Because Rosy is very white. Like, Rosy is a really, really, really pale skin tone, actually. It is built in a white base. It has a lot of white in it. Whereas the old Dwarven Flesh was not necessarily. It was a little bit darker. You think bones? Yeah. I don't know. I haven't actually gotten a bottle of that yet, Estro. I don't think... I've got the RVE paint set down here, but I don't think it's got Gnome Skin in it. Nope. So it must be a different new color. Newer color, I should say. So I've got this lighter olive, and I'm going to see how it plays as a highlight color up here on her brow. Now you have a couple choices with a half-orc. You can emphasize the heaviness of the brow if you want to give her a more brutal look, or him, depending on which half-orc you're working on. Or you can smooth out the forehead and the brow, and that will make him or her look more refined. In this case, since she's an intellectual and a wizard, I don't want to emphasize any, like, orcishness, so I'm not putting a real heavy brow highlight on her. Whereas if I was painting a half-orc barbarian, I might go a bit heavier. The highlights tend to come up right under the eye. And they'll come up right next to the nose as well. You'll still have that shadow on the side of the nose. You can see how the shadow on the side of the nose now defines that part of the face. You can see the nose clearly. I may need to actually downplay the shadow just a little bit. You don't want everything to look like lines. It can be hard in these little guys though, because you have so little room to work with for blending. Unfortunately, the swatches are usually a little bit suspect, Quindy, but yeah, that looks a lot more like the old Dwarven skin. It looks a little bit more like Rosy Skin Shadow, according to the swatch. But it looks a little bit like the color I mixed here, except this is more brownish. More neutral. So I have a little bit of a rosy color under her cheek right now. I just wanted to work with the highlight on the skin first. Usually I work from the shadow up on skin tones, but the exception is the blush. I tend to wait and apply any pink tones at the end and then tune. Because I like to get my highlights figured out first. So when you do a face, you have a shelf of highlight on the cheekbone, and then it goes down to that upper lip. That's just like, it's the shape of the bones of the face. So doing that thinned down my tusk there a little bit. I don't mind that. And you want to highlight that upper lip, the area above the mouth. Now, the upper lip, like the underside of it, this area, you want to be in shadow. You almost never see a really like you tend not to see as much of the upper lip because it cuts back so extreme, and it tends, look at my mouth right now. See, the upper lip is more of a shadow, and the lower lip is what picks up light. So that's a way to think about it on your face, no matter how small. That's why I usually just let the lining of the mouth be the upper lip on a 28 millimeter. The underside of the upper lip. Yeah, Astro, I mean, just looking at the swatch, right? There isn't a whole lot I can tell. Like, I can kind of tell from the swatch, but it does look, in the swatch, it looks more like Rosy Skin Shadow or the Old Dwarven Flesh. D. Clearman is the man to ask, actually. He's the one who said that it was more like the Old Dwarven. And he's got pretty much every MSP paint, so he'd be able to pull a direct comparison, which is, whereas I can't right now. I don't have the color. So I'm going to highlight this little edge of the jawline. There is how much highlight you put on it really depends on the model and your own style of painting, but I like the jawline to be defined, and I find that there is a highlight down here where the mandible flares out, depending on the face. If you have a very round face, you might not see that highlight on the jawline, but I tend to like it, so I'm going to actually tone it down just a little bit, though. I don't often take it up as much as my previous highlights because it's just a kind of a, it's catching a little light, but it's not catching a vast amount of light. This is where you're working in such a small area. Yeah, that would be something useful to put on the Reaper Discord, maybe, for people who have questions about that color. To swatch it, I mean. Alrighty, I want this red color on her lower lip. Once again, it can be hard to get all these things crammed into these tiny little areas, and I'm going to lose a little bit of the shadow under her lip, so I'm going to have to put it back. We're going to try to do this face in really fine micro detail. We're going to be attempting to hit all the stops, even though it's tiny. Again, we need that shadow under our lower lip. It's a necessary part. You can even see it on my face right now, even though I have a giant light up here. See it right here? Look at your own face. Use it as a model. Or barring that, if you find that your face isn't a great subject for that, look at magazines like Vogue or, you know, with good lighting and lots of different facial features. The models. I find that one issue of Vogue usually has so many, like, different faces and artistic references and lighting references that it's very useful. Now, of course, magazines going virtual, maybe not quite so useful to or accessible to try to locate a paper copy of anything, but I used to pick up like Vogue magazine just for that. I would just, you know, buy a copy every couple of years. I found that it was really useful. But of course you can do Google image searches and also find some good stuff. Nope, I need a stretch break right now, 10:30. 10:30 time. So we've got our fangs, or our tusks kind of outlined. I need to doctor the mouth a little bit more. I need to bring in more highlights. You can see how the face is coming up, though. I probably will take some actual Rosy and use that for my highest highlight on this skin tone. Kind of like we did on the vampire, right? Moni? Except this time I'm letting the green predominate. And the pinkish colors will just be more interesting than anything. Alright, so let's let our girly sit down here. There. Should probably kind of prop her up so she's got a pillow. Because then you can see her better. There. Okay, stretch time or tea time or coffee time or water time or anything you feel like doing, really. Stretch time. Yay. Ah. Yeah, I'm happy with the skin tone so far. It's enough to tell that she's orcish blood, but not, like, overwhelmingly greenish. Especially as I add the highlights. Oh, today is the day I work on my Sky Earth NMM handout for you guys. I think I have to do a lot of painting today. Probably need to do a kind of some step-by-steps illustrations. There we go. All right, gonna do some cat cows, and then we will get back at it for at least another 15 minutes. Since I started late, I may make it through the rest of the stream, because it's already like a shorter stream. Do a stretch. There we go. Oof. So what are people making for supper tonight? I'm doing, there's a Seattle chef. David grew up in Seattle that David liked. And we picked up his cookbook. And there's a recipe in it. It's bay scallops and pancetta and roasted jalapeno peppers. And I usually throw in a roasted bell pepper as well. And onions, and it's in like kind of a lemony sauce. It's very Mediterranean, and over noodles, or over, in my case, cauliflower rice. Oh, hey, Miniatures Den. Sure, I start discussing food, and Miniatures Den pops in. Homemade pizza for you. Good, Carrie Michael. Awesome. Yeah, we have a huge basil plant that I just want to slaughter for pesto. Like, I look at it and I just itch. David would not be happy with me because he uses it for caprese. Yeah, shout out to Miniatures Den. So awesome. Yes, yes. Oh, okay, leftover taco soup. Hey, taco soup is valid. I used to eat it all the time. Oh, you're doing Noom too. Oh, good, Harumph. Yeah, share your successes. Like, awesome. That's what I'm on right now, and I finally broke a plateau, and, like, I'm down over 5 pounds now, so I'm happy. Yeah, scallops, base scallops especially, and pancetta, like, you do everything else, and then you put the scallops in at the end, and all you have to do is, like, stir them around, like, off the heat, and they cook perfectly. Like, I love it because the only time I can get scallops to cook perfectly appears to be this way. Yeah. We only have one good window for herbs that need a lot of light. So hello everybody, thank you for coming over from Miniatures Den. I am Anne. I work for Reaper, obviously, since I'm on their stream. And we are working on Vonsale, that's it, Half Orc Wizard. She is a Dark Heaven model, so she's in metal. I'm going to we just started her today. And I wanted to do some orky skin tones, but more natural because she's a half orc. So I'm actually using complementary colors. I'm mixing troll hide and rosy skin to make her skin and its highlights. Hey everybody. Ooh, Japanese takeout. Oh, Kornika, I'm so jealous. I want sushi so bad this weekend. Like, I'm just like, this is a sushi week. I don't go very often because it's expensive here, but oh my gosh, I so want sushi. I'm just having huge sushi cravings. There was no debate, Big Apple, because I already knew what I wanted to do. So, there is no debate. Anne had this in mind. I personally do not like bright green orcs, but I do like greenish orcs. So, and with her, like I said, I wanted to almost do some fleshy highlights, and I definitely want to do more pink areas on her cheeks and nose. So let's get into that. There are times I let the audience choose the color scheme I'm doing, and then there are times I'm just like, nope, this is how I want to do it. Especially because I already know what I want to do with the dress. Since I know I want to do like a dark crimson dress, I wanted to choose a green that I could bring up appropriately that would work with that. So there are times, like I said, if I have a very strong color concept for a mini, you guys don't get to choose. Oh, yellowfin and yellowtail. Sushi rice. Sounds awesome, HM. Yeah, I'm seriously. I used to get sushi every week, but now that I'm a starving artist, I'm very, very restrained with my budget because I like to actually be able to put aside some money for retirement, at the end of the year. I know, crazy, right? But yeah, so I've been really tight on my budget, and but every once in a while I just have to give in. Like, I love sushi so much. And they have some very yummy sushi around here. All right, I'm just shading there between her breasts and doing a little bit of shading above the collarbone and up here on the neck. A little bit of a shadow toward the end. Again, I'm using a brown tone for this because I want, again, more naturalistic skin tones. I don't want artificial green. Not in the mood for Christmas green orcs. And I have painted, even in my greenskin army that I did when I was playing orcs for GW, I actually went more of an olive and less of a green with them. I thought it looked better. I liked it better. Yeah, I tend to, because of the low carb thing, I tend to look for places that'll do a riceless roll, and happily more and more will these days. But there's a place down here on Castro Street, just like walking distance from us, that does a really beautiful, like, cucumber wrapped, and it's got like mandarin orange slices in it too. It's just so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's like salmon, cream cheese, cucumber, and orange slice with some microgreens. Oh, it's so good. Love it. Love it. Now I want sushi. Maybe I should be bad. I don't have to wait to the weekend, right? I could just, like, eat normal food on the weekend instead of treating myself, and I could treat myself today. That's adulting, right? That's what the good side of it is you can decide that any day is a treat day. Within reason. For those of us who are starving artists. All right, so a little bit of a highlight up here on her collarbones as well, since I put a shadow behind them, but I want them to catch a little bit of light, since Bobby's been nice and actually sculpted them. It's the nice thing about ZBrush, right, is you can get all those little details back in. Yeah, a lot of people like really dark orcs, and if she was a full orc, I'd think about it, HM Road Dog. Like, full orcs, I think I would probably use a blue-black for shadows and, like, work with a very dark olive green, and work up from there. But with her, like I said, being a half-orc, I don't want to quite go that dark, especially because I know that my dress, the crimson dress that I'm going to do, is going to go down almost black. So I want contrast, and that means making her skin a little bit lighter. But I don't mind it. I mean, I actually kind of really like how she's looking. This may end up being a model that I really, really like. We'll see. I'm going to get her palm here because the light's going to hit there. Going to get the tops of these fingers anyway. There's quite a hard shadow on the underside of her hand here. Because it is turned toward the floor rather than up top. But I can hit the knuckles up here. That's a little bit in shadow from the jar, so we want to keep that in mind. Sushi is healthy, but it's expensive. That's why I try not to do it all the time, Kerniko. Like I said, like when I did paint club at Reaper every Saturday, I would get myself sushi every Saturday. Because if I was going to work 6 days a week, then by gosh, I was going to get myself sushi. So I always had sushi. And I miss those days, but I'm now also not, I still work for Reaper, but it's very much part-time, and so I do not have that extra income to devote to weekly sushi. Nope, not yet, Pendrake. I'm going to think about it. It also depends, Pendrake, if I decide to do the gemstone here like I want to. I kind of think I want to sculpt a little crystal to go on the top of her staff. So in that case, we've got accent colors here, and probably the handle or the sheath of the dagger will also get that accent color. So those are all, we'll have a good triad of places to put an accent color at that point. So I'll think about that. I may do a see-through flask. I may do, actual glass, transparent glass on this one. I don't usually get the opportunity to do it. And this is an excellent flask to do it on. So yeah, sushi. Exactly, Zambies. Yeah. Too expensive for me most of the time, but I do let myself have it like once a month, HM, I can usually budget for it. I don't think I want to. Yep, Pendragon. I could totally go rose with the crystal and with the flask and with this, but that would be very close to red. And remember, we're doing that dark red here. So I think that's probably not different enough. It'll be interesting to try to find a good color after I do all the rest of this. And it's easy to paint yourself into a color corner at that point, but it helps that it's an accent color. I could go pink with it. I could make it very light, and it would still go with a red dress, as long as there was enough contrast in the actual shade of it. Ooh, sushi burrito. Oh my gosh. Oh, girl, though, that sounds so good. Like, if they did it in, like rice paper wrappings and put a lot of like nice avocado in it, and oh, that sounds so tasty. Oh my gosh. My old sushi place in Denton in Texas near to Reaper had something like that. Had a big hand roll that was more like a sushi burrito. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So good. Man, okay, I'm going to give in. At this point, you guys have like you've done it. I can't resist anymore. We've talked too much about sushi. I have to order sushi for lunch. All I have otherwise is salad, so it's like my usual salad that I do, which is tasty salad. Don't get me wrong. We do handmade it, and we do homemade lemon vinaigrette dressing, which we always keep around. And I put sheep's milk feta and chopped pecans on it. It's so good. Like, it's a salad I can be happy to eat every day, and then I usually have something along with it, some sorts of protein, But today, I feel sushi-like. Oh, okay, cool. I'm glad, Luthar, thanks. Yeah, I used to have a low opinion of the color wheel, but I've done so much teaching with it that I really can't, I can't diss it. Like, it is a useful tool in explaining things. It helps to have something to refer to explain stuff. When you've got people who just, are really don't know what to do with color, it's really, if you are confused about color, it is very useful. And the grayscale on it is very useful as well, as I've mentioned recently. To make sure you've got a good range in your highlights and shadows where it's appropriate. All right, so just had to touch up the lining on that hand. That's good to know, HM. I don't know if we have a sushi place right down on the corner that also does bowls. But I tend to go a little bit farther, even though it's a little more expensive, because there's a place that does the riceless rolls that I really enjoy. Definitely only a once a month or even less splurge for me, though. There we go. Alrighty, I'm liking how her face is coming out. The highlights are coming up here. That's nice. Want to get all these details. We're trying to get like a really nice set of details here, even with a very small model. These days with 3D sculpts, the amount of detail on some of these models is just baffling. I also need to figure out what all this is. I think she's got a bodice, and then she's got straps that are holding her her pouches and her dagger on. I think I can see everything. Sometimes it can get hard, even with the Zenith, like, it brings out some details, but you're just like, what is that? What is that? And it can be a little difficult, but I think I see a bodice around here, around her side. So that would mean that we need a contrasting color to back all of this leather. Oh, that's too bad, Suru. I just never like it as much when I make it my own. Also, there's the problem of finding really fresh fish. Kroniko. There's a seafood market in Santa Cruz, but that's about 40 minutes away for us. But if I really wanted to make it for myself, I suppose I could go and do that. I'm always a little paranoid. Living most of my life in landlocked states, I'm always a little paranoid about making my own sushi, because you never know quite how fresh the fish is. And some grocery store people just don't even know. Like, you'll ask them and they'll just kind of look at you like you're a nut. Yeah, veggie rolls would be easy. And I love to make pickled, Asian pickled vegetables. So that's a good idea, Nora. And we always have like shrimp in the freezer that I could thaw out and cook and do some cooked shrimp in like a veggie roll, like a spring roll. There are ways. But then I'm always, the other thing with lunch is the amount of time. I try not to let lunch totally get out of hand. It's easy when you're freelancing. It's so easy to let lunch get out of hand. It's not just a lunch hour anymore. It could turn into a lunch 2 hours unless you stop it. So I try to be conscious of how much time I'm spending on actually cooking or creating my lunch or running out to get my lunch. Try to act like I'm still at a 9-to-5 job. Because I like that schedule. All right, I want to correct that because I got a little bit out of control. Still a little bit heavy on that shadow at her chest, so we'll see how that shapes up. I'll probably do some more tuning here because I'm not thrilled with the way it looks right now. We've got definitely too much uniboob going on here and a little bit too rough. Veggie stuff is all you can eat, or all you eat. Yeah. I thought about going vegetarian once, but I was close to vegetarian for a long time, but then I realized I was doing better on my diet if I threw more protein in, and I really am not a fan of beans. So I went back to introducing some seafood. All right, let's see here. I want to maybe screw around with that a little more. Thank you, Maris. Yeah, she's a half orc, not a full orc. This is Vonsoleil. That's her number. She's a really cool model. When I saw her, I wanted to paint her right away. So yeah, there's just I think I've got a little bit of maybe pitting, or maybe it's the sculpt, but that dip right there with her chest is coming off a little rough. Could be the casting. You just never know. Sometimes there's little bitty kind of artifacts in the way that one place meets another. So I'm going to come at it from the top. I think I'm going to be okay. I think I'm just going to go like that. And I think this is actually going to end up being red. Hold on. I'm going to actually sketch back in. I think part of the problem is that maybe I let my lining get a little bit out of hand. So I'm going to grab some white and redefine the collar around it, and then I'm betting it's going to come right into line. We're almost to the end of the stream. I think I can do it till 11. Didn't quite get all of our pink tones in yet. But yeah, the skin tone, Maris, is a troll hide and rosy skin mixed together in various increments. And then I'm using some, it's kind of a weird triad, using some russet brown to build shadow. And I haven't started adding in white. I've just been adding in more rosy skin to build my highlights so far. And I may just stick with that because since she's a half orc, I wanted to use both kind of a greenish skin, but I wanted some more quote unquote regular skin tones in there as well. Since I want to make her a little lighter skinned. All right, yeah, that's good. Okay, let's grab this white and redefine this collar. Because I think I just got my lining, my lining got a little bit out of hand. So once I trim that back up, it starts looking better. All right, well, good. I still feel like I want to mess with that a little because it's a little dark, but it's not bad. So, all right, let's try to make a rosy skin highlight real quick with our last few minutes. Zen, often if you do that and you look chalky, it can be because you thin your paint too much at that point. I never get chalkiness when I'm adding pure white, but there's definitely there are some of the off-whites I do find sometimes I get chalky. The way to fix it is just to take more like your medium middle tone. Like in this case, I would probably go with my base color, and just do a glaze with it. And it should take the chalkiness right down. And that's the same with an orcish skin tone like this, or just a regular skin tone. So go with your medium color and do a glaze. Oh, totally. Yeah, I wanted it to be kind of fleshy. I wanted it to be more human than pure orc. Because half orc, right? You want something that makes sense. Yeah, Zen. And if you're not like, you want to use usually the higher pigmented a white is, the less you'll get the chalkiness. And usually I do find it when I've thinned too much. So keep that in mind too to troubleshoot. I'm going to grab some of this Rosy skin and see what I can do with a highlight. Just right there on her temple. Kind of use it on the brow ridge and the temples. Again, I don't want to over accentuate her brows because I don't want her to look like, you know, kind of monkey browed or anything, but I want that highlight going up there. And then I want that same color for a highlight. And you really won't be able to see the pinkness of it necessarily, although we can see a little bit of it. It's a very subtle shift, but I think it's more visually interesting. So, and I like visually interesting. I used to do so many boring paint jobs before I started really highlighting and shading everything with different colors. And now I like to kind of make things a little more complex. When it can be fun to experiment with. Now on 28mm faces, you often can't put much of a shadow under the nose, although there certainly is one with overhead light sourcing. So you may need to just kind of shade the underside of the nose. And this shadow on the side of the nose is way too harsh at this point because I brought up this color so much. So I'm going to grab my mid-tone and kind of mark that in again to take that down. Probably could have just kept the mid-tone and not put the shadow on either side of her nose. That's a little bit better. The tusks are going to give us a very like squared off look here unless I deal with them soon. All right, so I definitely got a little bit onto the tusk on that side. Yeah, that's why I like painting Big Apple. I really do prefer to paint larger faces. But I thought we would push this one and see how far we could take it. There are some techniques like skin texture that just don't work great. All right, so that tusk got a little bit too far off on that side of her face. I'm going to grab some of my base coat. And take that back. There we go. That's better. That's better. And I think this side of the face we still need a little more highlight on. It can be hard to like highlight when you're trying to get past the staff like that. Just use little touches. Try to keep your hand relaxed. And just hit the basics if it's kind of hiding. Her viewing angle is plainly this, so as long as the face looks very good from this angle, that's good. And as long as it looks acceptable from that angle, you're okay. Gonna get that nose again now that I've touched it up. I do want the nose to come out. There, it's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit better. Now this Rosy skin highlight just under the eye on this side. Again, go slow. You've got your highlights. Yes, her tusks are sculpted, Varl. If you go back and look at the start of the VOD on this, you should be able to see it with the zenith lighting. And now I think I want to grab my rosy color that I mixed, this dark rose, and bring in some more of those pink tones. So these are the colors that I really like this one. This one is more of her skin tone mixed with a bit of deep red, her highlight tone. But then I took some of this and made even more deep red, and I like that rosy color a lot. Which currently it's in her cheekbone, but I'm gonna put it in the other cheekbone. So this lovely color here. 9002 Deep Red is probably my favorite color to use when I'm mixing blush tones for skin. It's got a little bit of blue in it, and it's very deep and vibrant red, and it tends to create a really good natural look for lip color and blush. It's one of my fave things. And how dark you want it is just how much you will add to the skin. Like if you don't want a real dark red, then you just don't add very much. Let's see here. Let's move this palette out of the way. And I'm putting a little bit more of the pink over here. And I want a bit in her ear as well. And I want a little bit on her nose. These are such tiny touches, and chances are a lot of it's going to be lost on observers. But I know it's there, so for me. But yeah, these tiny faces can be hard to do. Like sometimes you just have to generalize and hit your key points with them. Tusk. This is probably too bright a white and I'm going to end up taking it down. Tusk. Little tiny tusks, but they're very bright, so I'm going to sculpt them a bit more. This one overwhelmed its lining, so it just wants to go and blend into the top of the lip there. So I'm going to take some liner and redefine it. And I'm going to make sure that I've got the line of the mouth solidly all the way out to that tusk, because that's what's going to sell the tusks. All the way out. Make sure that I reapply the line of the mouth if I've lost it. With a lot of skin tones, sometimes if you put in that line of the mouth early, you can lose it. You can make them a little finer. That's nice. There we go. And I feel like I want just a little bit. Like I want a bit of this liner mixed with maybe my brown to hit the corner of this mouth and just kind of make a line going up so that it's very evident. That was a little mucky. So it's very evident that the tusk is coming off of her lower lip. And that went a little bit awry, so I'm going to re-lock in that tusk. We lost a little bit. I had it at a beautiful level, and then I blorfed it. Now I need to redefine it. Cat. And honestly, Kat, if you're having to do that and you find that it separates instantly, my question would be, is it frozen? It may be compromised. Paint, once you put it in solution, should stay in solution for a decent amount of time. And if it doesn't, that's a sign that it has frozen in transit. Because freezing will put paint permanently out of solution. You'll think that you're getting it back in solution, but in reality, it starts to separate again instantly. Yep. Yep, I'm just trying to fix this little upper lip here. And this little tusk. That's better. I need to widen her lower lip though. Because again, the tusks are coming out of that supposedly, so technically I need that to be wider. I don't know that Bobby necessarily sculpted it that way. But I feel like my red has to go out that far. Or my pink, I should say. My lip color needs to go out that far in order to get there, right? That's probably a pretty good stopping point, though. I'm just going to add in a little bit of shadow here. I'm going to extend my shadow to make it look like the lip is a little wider. Which is going to give her kind of a scowl a little bit. I'm not too bad about that. Not too sad about that. I use Sitara. I don't normally wear glasses. So these are 3 times magnification reading glasses. I sit them down at the end of my nose so that I can look down at the model and still look up to read things around me. But without these, I'd be dead in the water because at 40, I lost my warranty expired. And my close-in vision that I had wonderful close-in vision for most of my life just went out the window. So yeah, reading glasses. Yes, these are if you find that magnifiers and optimizers are really intrusive, which I do because I like to paint up like that. Just try reading glasses. Marika Reimer gave me this tip, and they really help. So it's 3 times mag is what I use. Some people use a 4, some people use a 2. It really depends on how much help you need. So I would recommend trying a 2 or maybe a 3. I find that gives me a lot of magnification. I can see all the fine details on the face. If I really need to get close, if there's anything I can't get, I actually steal David's Optivisor and I put it over the top of my reading glasses so I have both. And then I can see everything. I can see molecules. Well, no, not really. But yes, you get the idea. So yeah, no problem. I mean, these are nice. They're so lightweight. They're so comfortable. They're super cheap. So if I lose a pair, I don't cry, you know. Oh, severe weather alert test, yeah. Yeah, I find the reading glasses are the only... I tried to use a magnifying glass when I was a kid and hated it, so... All right, we're going to stop there, I think, guys. And just because my back needs a break. And thank you all for having some patience today when I started a little bit late. And welcome to the new people who I haven't seen talk before. Hold on, let me get this highlight on this lower lip. But yeah, Sitara, it's somewhat the level of magnification that I've got and somewhat just like having built brush control and also using a really, really good brush with thinner paint. It's a combination of all that to get the little details. I think she's coming along really well. I like how she looks so far. I think I've gotten her with a very severe look on her face. She's plainly displeased. Somebody has made an off-color joke in her presence. But I'll need to redefine that upper lip. I've lost a little bit of it with highlighting my lower lip. And of course, I'll need to do the eyes and stuff. So yeah. Hey, no problem. I am here, Sitara, for random questions. Like, we paint models on stream, and I explain what I'm doing, but the real gold of our streams usually is just the random questions that pop up. Because if you're thinking it, if you're asking it, there's at least 3 other people in chat who are thinking it, right? So... I always find it useful no matter what question, even if I've answered it 50 times before, always ask everybody because, you know, you may know it, but somebody else may not. Go get some sushi. I'm thinking about it. I'll check my bank balance. Then I'll check my savings and I'll see if I can afford it. But yeah, I really would love some sushi. All right, guys. So we did skin tones today. We talked a lot about like kind of non-human skin tones. The best way when you're doing a non-human skin tone to make it look, as they say, fleshy or more realistic is to add some pink tones in it because it's what we're used to seeing in skin. So reddish tones. And so that's why I was highlighting this olive with a pinkish skin tone and also introducing some reddish tones here in her cheeks and on her lip and stuff. And so it'll end up looking like a very realistic, very believable half-orc skin tone, I hope. So, all right, tomorrow, I'm not done. Praise. I don't know. I need to adjust parts of the skin tone still. I'm not quite happy yet with some areas. But yeah, so we did that, and tomorrow is Lisette. We're back to Lisette. Remember, we're doing dark skin tones on her. So lots of skin lately. Lots of skin. Because we're starting so many new models. Do them now. I always do them so late. But I'll probably do them when I feel the skin tones are okay, right? So that probably means we do them next time. All right, everybody. Who do we have to raid today, Reaper? We have Pixelogic. All right, cool. Super fantastic. Have fun, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow for Lisette. And hopefully my back will stop twinging on me. All right. Adios.